Looking good.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Where are you going?
Can you hear me online?
Right, but you're good. You're good. I can tell. Yeah, you're good. Oh, well, you're good.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday morning Zen program. We're getting settled in here. I think we've fixed our video and sound problems. For the last month, our speakers have sounded like a chipmunk. Hopefully, if I do, that just means that I'm younger. So I'm so happy to see all of you here this morning and a lot of new faces. June, Roshi, and me have been on vacation for the last month. We just came back a couple of days ago, and it's lovely to be home. It's lovely to be here with you, the Sangha, to practice with you, and to share the Dharma together, even in these difficult times. I was going to give a more or less a traditional Dharma talk on trust until Renee Good got killed in Minneapolis, and then I couldn't sleep, and I realized I had to talk about that in some way. I don't like to talk about politics on this platform. I am not going to be talking about bipartisan politics here, but I am going to talk about speaking truth to power. Speaking truth to power. It sounds a little quaint, doesn't it? A little I mean, is there still such a thing? Is there truth? Apparently there isn't in the culture we're living in now. There really isn't any. We don't certainly agree on what, we might argue about what is true, but there's no agreement on what's true. So if truth doesn't exist, then what's left? Power. And let's not blame just the government or a particular party. This is part of our culture that has made the party that's in power now partly possible. If you look at the larger picture of modernity, postmodern culture, modernity has been good in many ways for us. It's brought medicine and science, rights for women and voting rights, all kinds of good things have happened from modernity. And it rightfully deconstructed religion and some of the silly metaphysics that went with it, like how many angels dance on the head of a pin. So that's a good thing that we got rid of that. But they threw the baby out with the bathwater. They threw all of religion out, all of metaphysics. And if there's no religion, let's face it, world religions are over thousands of years of our culture have brought core values that make us human beings, moral values. And when you throw all that away, when you deconstruct value, when you say value is just a made-up thing, which is what postmodern culture says, then it's hard to, it's not possible to even talk about speaking truth to power, because there is no truth. That's constructed. The story is constructed. And we so badly need a story of value at this moment, a story about the future. I've sort of struggled with how to give this talk this morning, because I'm struggling, and I'm guessing many of you are as well. I have struggled over the years that this administration has been in place, and I think that I have been numbed down much of the time and confused, and because I'm basically an optimistic person, I have always hoped or thought that things will turn out good in the end. They've gone too far this time, and the midterms will correct it all, or the institutions will hold. I don't know. I don't know. And so I think this is an important moment in our history. I think what happened in Minneapolis when ICE killed Renee Good is a moment, is a turning point for all of us. And we have to take stock of what's going on. And it's not going to be easy. I don't even want to give this talk, but I have to. I am responsible to you as your abbot. I represent a spiritual tradition that is about the true, the good, and the beautiful. And that matters. So the question I think we have to ask ourselves, and it's a hard one to answer, is who do we want to be? What kind of America do we want to live in? And I could go into some history about our founding principles of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, liberty and freedom for all. For all. Now, it's not a perfect document. Obviously, we fall short of that ideal. And we could read it, we could appreciate Abraham Lincoln and Roosevelt and the kind of values that they brought forth. And that liberal consensus that was evoked by Lincoln during the Civil War and FDR during World War II, people fought and died for that. Americans fought and died for that. All kinds of Americans. Whites, blacks, browns, Asians. And we put Asians in concentration camps during World War II. Don't forget. I think in some ways we're experiencing a kind of amnesia, because it's not possible. I find it very hard to find the narrative about what's going on, because it's very confusing. And I think I think the first thing we have to talk about, and first of all, is what is our government? What is our government? It appears that Trump governs by spectacle. He doesn't govern like a traditional politician. everything he does is spectacle. Invading Venezuela was a spectacle. They invaded, and it was apparently it was very well carried out with, the military, very impressive, risky. But they did that without any plan about what they were going to do afterwards. And that doesn't matter to them. What matters is the spectacle. In his first term, he just governed by tweets. He watches the TV all the time. He's not a traditional politician. So I'm going to use the word fascism here, and I realize it's overused, and just to use the word is already hyperbolic. I think it's almost impossible not to be hyperbolic and talk about fascism. So that's why it's difficult to actually be clear about what fascism is and why we are living in it. It's just unbelievable to me that I am living in America that is ruled, it seems to me, by a government that has all the signs of fascism. So let's first of all try to understand what fascism is based on history, what we know, the patterns of what it's like, and bring it down to earth, not in terms of partisan politics or anything, but just what is it? And see if that doesn't match the patterns and the behavior of the government that's in power in America at the moment. Fascism is a worldview about the world is rotten. That's a worldview of fascism. Everyone is rotten. And anyone who pretends not to be rotten is lying. Anyone who pretends to have basic goodness or sanity is just a hypocrite. That level of cynicism that we are living through is a moral injury we are all experiencing on a daily basis. And it is a collective trauma we are experiencing. Fascism is a system of government that relies on the idea that the vast majority of people cannot have any say in the government because they aren't as smart as a smaller group of people, about 10%. And that small group believes they're the only ones who understand how society should work, because of that, they need to direct the government, society, and the economy to create a strong country that will assert its force elsewhere. This implies that the small group of people who are better than everyone else must direct the larger mass of people. And the way this is done is by othering some vulnerable part of the population, Jews, immigrants. A small group of people are the good guys, and everyone else is the bad guys. Everyone else. If you're not in the in group, you're in the out group. Notice the pressure this puts on politicians. If you're a politician, you want to be in the in group. You're going to pay a price if you're in the out group. If you're a university, you want to be in the in group. If you're a scientist and you want to get funding, you want to be in the in group. The bad guys are labeled, you may think I'm oversimplifying this, but I don't think I am, actually. The bad guys are labeled socialists, radical leftists, or in the case of Renee Good, domestic terrorists. Wow. And there is this absolute division into good and bad that helps solidify the in-group by convincing them to hate the out-group. And in such a situation, people don't want to be in the out-group. The government convinces the in-group that they are the true patriots, the true Americans, and the ones who can usher in a resurgence of the past. Fascism always has this nostalgic it doesn't look to the future, it always looks to the past, some ideal past, the ideal family, the ideal, a nostalgia back to the 1950s. And it promises its supporters that if you support them, it will usher in this wonderful, safe, and prosperous past. And you just need to, even if now you're poor and you don't have good health insurance, it's okay, because you're going to be better off if you support us. We're going to make everything good. You're going to be part of that goodness, and everyone else will be part of the bad. Fascists don't really need other countries because they're foreigners. They have foreign ties. They're not good either. They're bad. The government, business, military must work together. And any idea of equality among people is denigrated. Even any idea of governing is ridiculed. Trump doesn't govern. He has no interest in governing. So some people are better than others, and the rest must be whipped into shape. Toughen up. And if you resist, you're bad. And apparently, if you're driving on a public road and they don't like you, they have a right to kill you now, even if you're a white woman like Renee Good. This is different. Gonzalez, who was killed here in Chicago in Franklin Park last September, I believe, was a Mexican. And we know most people that get killed in their cars, and it does happen quite a lot, are black people of color. So one thing that makes this moment different is they killed a white woman. And many commentators have been mentioning this. So a white woman, 37 years old, had 3 children, a devout Christian, loved to sing. So what fascist governments do is they keep aggressively ruling and upping the ante. They don't back off. We may hope that they would, but they don't. And you can see in the pattern of how this government is ruling, they keep doing more. And once they can kill a white person on the streets of Minneapolis, they can kill a white person on the streets of Chicago. we get used to it. It gets normalized. And then they invade other countries. And they grab their resources. That's the philosophy of fascism, and I wonder if that doesn't sound like the philosophy of the current government in our administration. And it's just so shocking for me to hear myself say that here today. So, how do we speak truth to power? Well, first of all, we have to have some sense of what's true, or it's not possible to speak truth to power. If we don't believe in the truth in ourselves, in our human experience, then it's not going to be possible. And we have lots of teachings in our Zen Buddhist tradition that speak about values, precepts, the 6 paramitas, the Eightfold Path. They're all about values. So let's start with the most basic teaching of Buddhism, 4 Noble Truths. First noble truth, the noble truth of suffering, dukkha, affliction. Buddha just looked around, he said, suffering is here. If you're a human being, you're going to suffer. He wasn't making a moral statement. He wasn't saying suffering is bad. He wasn't saying it's good. He was just saying it's noble to acknowledge it. Right? One of the images that's sometimes used in the literature for dukkha is, or the metaphor, is a wheel with the axle that's off balance. So it's a bumpy ride. Yeah. And then the second noble truth is samudaya. Thirst, desire, causes suffering. I'm going to come back to this because I have a different take on this. Samudaya actually means arising together. What arises together? Suffering and our reaction to it. Suffering and our emotion. And then, third noble truth is nirodha, nirvana. Enlightenment is possible. And then to be enlightened, we lay out the 4th noble truth, which is magga, the path, the Eightfold Path. Now, the trouble with this teaching is we tend to think of it as a set of beliefs, and that enlightenment is something that will free us from suffering. The Buddha got sick. Shakyamuni got older. He died. So will we. So I think it's probably much more skillful to reinterpret the 4 Noble Truths as a set of practices that we can do, not a set of beliefs. And so we start with suffering, and you say suffering is real. We all suffer. And we react to that suffering with emotions, and that reactivity creates more suffering. So then the practice is to begin to work with our reactivity and see how we're being triggered by the suffering so that we can be with it in a way that's more spacious, more open-hearted. To be with suffering with more compassion, more kindness, more empathy, less judgment. To notice the nature of our projections, how we other people we don't like, how we other people that threaten us, how we even other political parties that we don't agree with. We don't see that so much, because normally when we speak of othering, we're talking about, in our modern day, we're othering people that are vulnerable, right? People that are disenfranchised, homeless people, immigrants, gay people. But we also other people we disagree with, but we don't see that as othering. When we are morally outraged, and we have every right to be, we also other that person we are disagree with. When we see someone behave despicably, really, and mean, as we can see in the party that's in power, they enjoy being mean. They enjoy seeing your outrage. They win when you're outraged. They win when you're reactive. They enjoy that. So part of, I think, speaking truth to power is we have to find the truth in our own experience. It's not going to come from outside. And the only way I know to do that is to sit still and to not know, to practice, to open, to be more spacious with my experience and not to jump to conclusions, not to hold on to any opinion in a rigid way. Bernie Glassman used to call the Four Noble Truths the Four Opinions. Just to get a rise out of Zen students. Oh, it's not the Four, no, it's the Four Noble Truths. And then if we think of enlightenment, not as a metaphysical thing, although we could make a case for that, surely. But to be more practical, enlightenment is an open awareness, being open, being spacious, noticing the context we're in and behaving appropriate. How we behave is what matters. It's not so helpful what we believe. It doesn't really matter. It matters, where the rubber meets the road is how we behave, how we treat each other. So let's go a little more into this. Maybe we could talk about the First Noble Truth as embracing all of life. When we take this Bodhisattva vow to save all sentient beings, we take it with the full knowledge of samsara. We take it with no illusions about the suffering that's happening in the world. And rather than being outraged by samsara, we accept that samsara is here. In fact, there would be no nirvana without samsara. Not possible. So we accept all of life. Think of Vimalakirti. The world is sick. Because the world is sick, I am sick. He accepted all of life, including the suffering, including the shit. And I think that's where we start with practice. And I don't think it's possible to really do that without some deep vow, like the Bodhisattva vow, to live your life, to live a life of service, to live a life where you are really examining your own experience honestly and noticing the nature of your projections, the nature of your judgments, the nature of your reactivity, your anger, your outrage. All totally understandable. And yet, maybe not skillful. I say maybe because I don't have any absolute truths here. I don't know. I used to think nonviolent resistance was the way to speak truth to power. I think it's one way. I'm not sure it's the only way. I think there's probably a place for fierce compassion. And I'm not sure how that looks, but I think it looks like standing your ground. And it might include violence. I don't know. I'm not here to give a lot of answers. I don't consider myself a particularly, dedicated activist. I'm an artist. I love my life. I love my wife. I love all of you. I love the Dharma. I love teaching the Dharma and sharing it with you. And I consider politics a distraction from all of that. And I'm kind of pissed off about the fact that I have to give this talk to you this morning and I can't talk about other things that I love about the Dharma. That's what it is. A few things about the Eightfold Path would be useful to appreciate. The first Eightfold Path is right view. And traditionally, right view is appreciating the teachings of karma, Four Noble Truths, but the deeper teaching about right view is to have no view at all. That's right view. It's very Zen. If you're new to this practice, that may seem kind of puzzling. Right speech. What's right speech? Kind speech. We have upayas, or skillful means in our practice to help us practice right speech. One of the best is nonviolent communication. Being in a conflict with someone and speaking in such a way that you speak proactively about your needs and feelings in a way that doesn't blame the other person for what you're feeling. This is hard to do and this is why we have to practice on pushing a lot. Because we all get triggered and we're not skillful about it. We don't own our emotions fully, usually. A good one is anger. If you have problem owning your anger, and many people do, because it's scary, instead of saying to a person, when you said that, I'm feeling angry hearing you say that. That's owning my anger. We don't usually do that. We say, and you said that it made me angry. Do you hear the difference? You made me angry. No, he didn't make me angry. You don't have the power to make me angry. You see the difference? Mm-hmm. So, right speech in this context is speaking in such a way that the other person doesn't feel that you're blaming them for your emotion. Now, this is not easy to do. I don't do it perfectly. And there's some of you that have been on the other end of my anger and know it doesn't go well. And I apologize for that again and again because I don't do this perfectly. Speaking truth to power. So whatever speaking truth to power is, it's standing in your truth. And we might be confused. We surely feel despair. And surely we feel much of the time powerless. And I think what this practice helps us do is to stand in the power of our true nature that is unshakable. Our true nature is indestructible. We call it diamond wisdom. It's like a diamond. that has nothing to do with power and politics. It has everything to do with integrity, with values, with personal integrity, with precepts, with living them as best we can. And notice that the way many of you have been responding to ICE is to take care of your neighbors. I know some of you who live in neighborhoods where there are Latinos and Latinas, Mexicans or immigrants, that you go shopping for them because they're actually afraid to go out of their house. This is so sad to say that. And it's just gotten a little bit more dangerous. So I think the way we speak truth to power is we have to acknowledge that we need each other. We need allies. And we need to work with fear, because that's what fascism cultivates. It cultivates fear so that you will not speak up and you will be more compliant. How to be fearless without being reactive. That's the trick. That's not so easy to do. I think that's why we're practicing. And I think the first step in dealing with fear is just acknowledging that we have it, that it's here, and it's intelligent. We have every right to be afraid. And yet, if fear, just like anger, takes up residence in our heart, it will destroy you. We can't let that be the last word. And so the first step to being a warrior, a bodhisattva, a spiritual warrior, is to acknowledge your fear. And then, as one of my teachers, Trungpa Rinpoche, said, smile at your fear. Smile. We have so many good teachings that can help us here. They're not academic. The 6 paramitas. The first paramita is dana paramita, generosity. What does it mean to be generous? Well, traditionally it means to give dana. The dana bowl's right over there. But we also say generosity is giving no fear. Any of you that have been with people that are dying, that have done any kind of hospice work, know that the greatest gift you can give someone who's dying is to be with them without fear. And if you've done this work, you know you have your own fear. When you are with someone dying, it immediately comes up, well, I'm going to die too. And you have to work with that. And say, yeah, okay, but you can actually go beyond that. And when you can be without fear, with a calm and stable mind with someone that's dying, that is dana paramita. That is generosity. That's a gift. When you can be calm and stable when everyone around you is reacting and fearful, that is a great, great gift. That's why we practice. So we can speak truth to power. It doesn't have to be a large and dramatic thing. You don't have to chain yourself to a fence, although some of you might. I don't know. What we do arises in the context we find ourselves in. And it's so easy to try to grab onto an ideology and say, oh, this is it. And the ideology is a dead idea. Any ideology, left or right. As soon as you become attached to that ideology, it's the wrong view. It's just not skillful. Wrong's not the right word. Right, wrong. It's not dualistic like that. The paramitas are not dualistic. They are already here. They arise out of basic goodness and sanity. That's at the heart of our practice. Human beings are basically good. Unconditionally good. And if you see that, if you experience that, then it gives you a certain groundedness for showing up. Even if you're uncomfortable, even if you're fearful, showing up, breathing, moment by moment, and finding a way to bear witness to the situation you're in a way that moves it towards awakening, moves it towards spaciousness, moves it towards compassion, moves it towards wisdom. So we have the three tenets, which is a wonderful teaching, the three tenets of a peacemaker: not knowing, bearing witness, and loving action. You start with not knowing. You start by opening your heart. Your sad and tender, broken heart, you open, and your heart's broken already. The Poles have a saying, they say, any open heart is a broken heart. You can't open your heart without breaking it open. Samsara's cruel wheel of suffering. But because we've taken these bodhisattva vows, it doesn't intimidate us. We're not shocked by it. There's always been samsara, and we're not the first to be living under fascism. We're not the first. And we probably won't be the last. But here we are. We find ourselves here in a pickle. So here's another teaching, and the precepts are, many of you are studying the precepts now. I'm so happy. Jackie's going to take Jukai next week, the Reverend Myogetsu. That'll be a joyful occasion. So taking this bodhisattva vow and working to overcome fear can bring joy into our lives. We can actually cheer ourselves up. We can lift ourselves up. Not in some Pollyanna kind of way, but real. We can actually choose to lift ourselves up and open because we have Sangha friends. We have good spiritual friends that can support us, that confirm this teaching over and over again. So here's the first great precept is, and the precepts are framed in a negative. No killing, not killing. And then we usually reframe that because we're trying to bring it down to earth. Support life. So this is the wonderful teaching about the precepts if you don't know about them. When we study these 10 great precepts, they always have three aspects, and all three are true. You have to have all three to practice any particular precept, not killing. So the first way we interpret that precept is a literal, don't kill. Might mean you choose to be a vegetarian, might not, but that's a literal interpretation of the not killing. You try not to kill. The second aspect of practicing not killing is we observe that precept from a place of non-duality. So any dualistic notion is already killing. Anytime you judge someone else, you're killing their Buddha nature. So you might, and I often use, I don't want to pick on vegans because some of you are, and I'm glad that you are, if you are. But maybe, I'm just using this as an example. You could be observing the first precept in a very kind of pure way. And then you could have judgment about some of us that eat things that have parents. And I've been on the end of that judgment quite a lot, 'cause I'm a Zen teacher and people expect me to be a vegetarian, but I'm not. Okay, so if you observe the first precept that way, you're breaking it in the second way by judging people that don't follow your particular way of seeing things. You see that? Well, that becomes much more subtle, doesn't it? And nuanced. How do you, anytime we're dualistic, we're breaking the precept essentially, and we're dualistic. Just to open my mouth is dualistic. I mean, it's hard not to be dualistic. And then there's a third teaching, which is really important, which is we interpret that precept of not killing in the situations of life, not in the laboratory, not in the Doksan room where you're talking about it, but where it shows up in your daily life. That's much harder. That involves having a deep trust in your own sanity and being okay with whatever decision you make in a particular context and living with the consequences, living with the karma, whatever it is. And there's an example that's often used for this teaching of the first great precept, which is you're in a boat going across the river with a bunch of people in it, and you discover that your neighbor in the boat has a feud going with the village where you're going across, and he has a big tribal feud, and he plans to kill all those people in the village once you land on the other shore. What would you do? That's a situation where there is no good answer. Do nothing, because you don't kill, but he's going to kill. He's going to kill 100 people in the next hour. He's going to slaughter them. You're not going to stop him? Okay. Do you see how hard that choice would be? So someone asked the Dalai Lama what he would do if he was in that boat. And the Dalai Lama thought about this for a little bit. Yeah, it's difficult. And he said, well, my practice is not that advanced yet. I think he was copping out. And you see, that's the wonderful thing about Zen, because it's not either or. It's this and this and this. It's all three with an and. And that's complex. Life is complex. We're complex. The world is complex. And we're not going to do things skillfully all the time. We're going to be unskillful. We're going to be in situations where you have to make a hard choice, and neither choice is going to be ideal, and you have to choose. And I think this is the situation we find ourselves in, very difficult, where we have to ground ourselves and try to see with clarity what is going on politically in our world, without resorting to the kind of binary arguments that take place all the time that are dualistic, left and right, without demonizing the people we disagree with, being able to listen to them. Even listening to someone doesn't mean you agree with them, but just realizing that everyone wants to be happy. Even Trump. Everyone wants to be happy. So how are we going to speak truth to power? And I think that is the question for me anyway that's alive right now. And I think I'll open it up. We could have a little conversation. I also want to point out that Jackie and Mark are co-stewards of a new social action circle that she announced this morning. And if this is something that is alive for you, you can join that and find support with other people that are asking this kind of question. How are we gonna get through this very dark moment? Okay. So there's a microphone here that June May will pass around if you have a question or something.
Those of you online, feel free to unmute and join the conversation as well.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah, go ahead.
You
One
were saying
bathroom
that's
break.
the question.
It's not really a comment.
Anybody? Yeah. Okay.
Over here?
Yuki.
Yuki in front here.
Thank you very much. It's okay. Thank you very much for your talk. It's not the first time I hear the talk from the Dharma teachers. Sort of the fears infused by the social injustice. Just every time I hear, it just kind of comes back to that episode of my grandfather's brother, who received this red letter from the government. Japan had fascism, and once you receive this letter, there's no way you can say no to the government. And then you are enlisted, you'll be sent to the war zone, and there was to speak ill of the government at the time was a grave crime.
Yeah.
So nobody was able to say anything bad about the government.
Yeah.
But there was there's a record that he was talking about leaving the temple, going to Indonesia to fight Americans, and he made a kind of declaration that I am a Buddhist priest, and we have these precepts of not killing.
Yeah.
And he said he was not quite sure what to do in the battle, in the battlefield.
Yeah.
But he kind of made it clear that he's going there as a bodhisattva. And that comes as a priority. We didn't really know what happened while he was there, except for that one of the soldiers in his unit left a diary that left how he died, crossing the river and shot dead, but how he supported his unit. I mean, being a Japanese, I can never imagine what it must have been like back then, and there was just no way to say no.
Yeah.
What was coming from the government. We had to still observe the precepts in the war. So, yes. Now, just that just keeps coming back. So.
Yeah, so I appreciate you bringing that up, because Japan went through this, and it was one of the things that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there were Zen teachers and Buddhist teachers that reinterpreted that first precept in a way that was really, I think, dishonoring the truth of that precept, which was to follow the first precept, according to their interpretation, was to swing the sword without hesitation, to behead someone. And I think that was that's on those teachers that really dishonored the Dharma in that way. And I also appreciate that must have been extremely painful and difficult to be a Japanese in the country at that time, for your grandfather and for other Japanese. Yeah.
Thank you, Roshi. I think to that point, under the Tokugawa era, the samurai were vicious, and looking into modernity, you look at the guy Kaleniak, I think was his name, who wrote Fight Club. He wrote it as a prescriptive diagnosis about the toxicity of men without initiation, without purpose, and yet it was taken as doctrine. Okay? So even though my feeling is, when we're in grave danger, first do nothing, engage in not knowing, but to me, follow the artists, because they're the ones with the vision and seeing things most clearly. But even the artists cannot dictate how people take, Fight Club was meant to have a man look at it and go, I need to rethink my life, not, oh my God, here's this wonderful doctrine which will turn my life around. And that's exactly what happened. So we do have to be careful, because we're a society now that doesn't have a mythology. It doesn't have a purpose. It mistakes one for the other. And then we have to just be still.
Yeah, we're badly in need of a narrative and a story that takes us into the future, which we do not have right now. A story of value that will be meaningful, and we just don't have it. And it's very hard to find the narrative. But I think the good thing about the three treasures and the Sangha is that we have each other to support each other, and that we can find creative ways to resist as best we can. And the other thing, Yuki, that comes to me as you're talking about that is we also had concentration camps for Japanese during the war, which was a really dark moment in our history as well. So, and we're building camps now. It's just unbelievable. We're building camps. We drove, June and me were in the Everglades. We drove right up to the road where the Alcatraz, and there were police out there. They wouldn't let us through. There was some refuge in there too for birds, which I like to see, and they wouldn't let us in. But we're building camps. It's just unbelievable what's going on. It's almost hard to it's hard to wrap your head around.
I don't know, I'm sorry, but it's not unbelievable to me at all. Especially because, so this is not unbelievable at all, especially being a black woman. The fact that, I have to say this, the fact that just because the woman was white, that this makes this a turning point is exactly why we're in the situation that we're in. Mm-hmm. Black people have been killed by the government for a long time. Yeah. The fact that nobody cared and it wasn't a turning point then is exactly why we're in the place that we're in right now. Yeah. So we have to do some soul searching. And when I say we, I mean white people. Mm-hmm. All the white people need to do soul searching. The fact that nobody cared when other people who weren't white were being killed and putting in camps and being enslaved, that is on you. That's on white people. Mm-hmm. So to be here and say that we're shocked about this is like, are you crazy? Of course we're in this situation. They were always going to come for everyone. And the fact that people think that they're above just because they're white and they weren't coming for you is insanity. Mm-hmm. It's insanity, and it's incredibly disrespectful and disheartening to hear as a black woman.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you don't need to apologize to me.
Okay.
You need to do some soul searching.
Okay.
That's what people need to be doing.
Okay, I'd like to briefly address your statements, ma'am. I think you're using blanket statements. I don't think it's...
he just said that, that it's a turning point because the white woman died.
For white people. But I believe that if we're trying to be non-dual, we cannot say white people, black people, brown people. I believe we can say people.
Well, my whole entire point, and I'm not trying to cut you off, my whole entire point is that any person who dies, that should be a tragedy.
Okay.
That is what I am
That's
trying
true.
to say.
I am not arguing with
I'm trying to
that.
get people who have a filter, a bias, and a lens that can't see that, to see that it is incredibly hypocritical and incredibly heart-wrenching to hear that it's a turning point because a white woman died, but nobody cared when other black people were dying. That wasn't a turning point. or when Asian people, like that's just ridiculous.
Okay.
So that's all I'm trying to
Okay.
say. And if you get offended by that, then you have to do more soul searching, because that's the whole point, is that any human being, it should be a tragedy and a turning point when any human being is killed by the government, period. That is my point. My point is, if you are offended by what I'm saying, you need to do more soul searching and figure out why you're not also irate when any other group is killed, period.
But many of us are.
Well, I'm telling you,
So that's
what
what
I
I'm saying.
heard was that
Blanket
a
statements
turning point,
are-
it's a turning point because a white woman dies? Come on, man. No, it should be a turning point when any human being dies. Her race shouldn't matter. The fact that people are scared now because, now they're coming for us, honestly, it's like you almost just, I'm not going to say that, but
If I may,
No, thank you.
No,
it's not a shock. It
look,
shouldn't
I
be a shock
appreciate, I'm
at
glad
all.
that you're speaking up. I appreciate what you're saying. And I think what I was trying to say is it's a turning point politically for the whole country. And because the politics that we are in is scapegoating people of color, immigrants, and because for the first time someone that wasn't an immigrant, wasn't a person of color, was killed, politically it's a turning point. I think you would find a lot of people in here are just as upset about black people being killed as white people being killed. And I am going to apologize if you didn't, if you heard something differently from me
It was the
speaking.
way that it was stated.
Again, I'm sorry that
Yeah, I appreciate your
we're
apology.
not communicating so clearly.
But it should be an outrage for every person,
Okay.
period.
Adrian?
I apologize for my reactivity. I do truly apologize for that, because no harm was really meant. But I would like to go back to something else that was said, which is that we have no narrative. And I was thinking about that, and there are narratives that are being imposed upon us. There are futures that are narratives about futures that are being imposed upon us, such as the narrative from the Trek Bros about AI and how, what AI is going to do, and how that's such a wonderful thing. And we see some of the consequences now, which I won't go into. And the stated goal is to disrupt society and live their lifestyle with everyone else's peons, and possibly replaced by AI. Well, that's a narrative. That's a poisonous narrative. There's another narrative saying, well, we'll all go out into space. There's all kinds of narratives. There's the narrative of consume till you die, and who cares about the earth? I think the narratives that we here are in the process of constructing are counter narratives, but we would like them to have the force or the largeness of not being counter but being actual.
Okay. So we're out of time.
I was going to mention we're
And I
beyond
just
time.
wanna close by saying anytime that we have this kind of a conversation about politics, people are going to get upset, and it's okay, because it's difficult. And I want to close with, again, the teaching about the three tenets of not knowing and bearing witness and loving action. Bearing witness is about being on the same level with any other human being and noticing how we project and how we create others, and bearing witness and being bearing witness in a way that doesn't separate us from another person. And I think if we practice that, that would be what I think you're talking about, soul searching.
Yes.
And I get that it's, I appreciate your anger. It's real. So, and this is real. So let's all continue to practice and support each other, and notice how we project and other, and where does your self stop? Where is the circle? Where do you draw it? Who's outside that circle that you don't care about or is less important? And our practice is to always widen that circle.
you, Roshi. Thank you to our online Sangha for being here this morning. Have a lovely Sunday. Take care, everyone.